blocked a highway in southern Brazil after a landslide killed at least 2 people and around 30 more are missing. Rescue teams are deployed to look for survivors. More details on this later in the news. I am Nina Richie Yelago Flores, and this is Mata ng Agila International. Now for the headlines. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. orders a careful study of Philippines-United States Mutual Defense Treaty. Marcos administration says they must find ways to explore oil in the West Philippine Sea. Health expert believes 90% of Filipinos to have had COVID-19. United Nations appeals for $51.5 billion emergency assistance. And former U.S. President Bill Clinton announces he tested positive for COVID-19. An increase in prices of liquefied petroleum gas, or LPG, was effective today, December 1. Petron Gasul has imposed a 2 pesos and 25 centavo increase per kilo, or a total of 24 pesos and 75 centavos for each cylinder of 11 kilograms. Petron Auto LPG also imposed an increase of 1 peso and 26 centavos per liter. Pilipinas Shell, for its part, hiked prices of Solane LPG by 2 pesos and 27 centavos per kilo, or a total of 24 pesos and 97 centavos per 11 kilogram cylinder. This is the second big-time price hike on LPG following last November's adjustment of 3 pesos and 50 centavos per kilo increase and 1 peso and 96 centavos on auto LPG. The Department of Energy earlier announced the price hike on LPG as it expects higher global demand in countries experiencing the winter season this December. The Philippines is ranked number 1 among countries with the highest prices of onion. Currently, red onion prices in the country range from 280 to 300 pesos per kilo. White onion, on the other hand, has reached 400 pesos per kilo in supermarkets, or equivalent to $6.63. Data gathered by Global Product, the global average price of onion is $1.51, or 80 pesos per kilo. Next in rank to the Philippines is Puerto Rico with $4.70. Third is Japan with $4.62. Kazakhstan is fourth with 40 cents, and Uzbekistan is fifth with 36 cents. Norway has the lowest price of onions with 22 cents, or an equivalent of 13 pesos per kilo in the Philippines. The Marcos administration continues to support Kadiwa stores until prices of commodities stabilize. Vic Somintak reports.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. inspected the launching of Kadiwa stores in Quezon City Hall's Rice and Garden this morning. In his address, the president said Kadiwa stores are part of the government's assistance to consumers as well as suppliers of various products under the category of micro, small, and medium enterprises, or MSMEs. Marcos said with the national government and local government units, or LGUs, working hand in hand using the Kadiwa concept, consumers can avail of much lower prices of commodities as compared to those in the regular markets and supermarkets.
Alam niyo po, ito ay pamamaraan upang makapagbigay tayo ng pagkakataon sa ating mga kababayan na makabili ng mga iba't ibang commodities na may savings. Dahil nga dumidiretso kami sa supplier, dumidiretso ang pamahalaan, at ang maganda sa pamahalaan ang nangunguna ay ang pamahalaan ay hindi kailangan kumita. Kaya kahit walang kita kung ano yung binili, kung magkano binili, ganon din ipinagbibili. Kaya ito yung naging lamang ng Kadiwa. At isa pa, bukod pa dyan, ay makikita natin ay nabigyan natin na pagkakataon ng ating mga MSMEs na mabigyan sila ng isang lugar, isang palengke kung saan naman nila may pagbili ang kanilang mga produkto.
President Marcos said the national government intends to continue Kadiwa stores beyond the holiday season. As long as prices of commodities have not normalized, Marcos said Kadiwa stores would continue. The president said currently the supplies of existing Kadiwa stores would last until February or March next year.
For us, what we are looking at, once we get to a point where it's no longer necessary, where the prices in the markets are the same as what we can give in the Kadiwa, then we don't need the Kadiwa anymore. Maybe just for distribution, para sa mga far-flung areas. Diyan na siguro papasok yung dating programa na may mobile na Kadiwa. So maybe we'll get, but we're not yet there at that point. Pinapakalat lang natin around the country right now. As it stands right now, in terms of supply, we're okay until at the very least February, March of next year. Hopefully, by then, the prices of commodities in the market will have normalized. That's what I call it. Na medyo hindi na masyadong papalit-palit. So I think we're okay until then. That's our best projection.
Marcos also lauded Quezon City Mayor Joy Belmonte for spearheading the Kadiwa stores. The president said the national government is looking at Quezon City as its model for the program. Marcos inspected the stalls participating as the Kadiwa stores along with Belmonte, Trade Secretary Alfredo Pascual, Labor Secretary Bienvenido Laguesma, and other local officials. Vic Somintak reporting for mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
To find what is most useful to defend the country's territory, President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has ordered the careful study of the Mutual Defense Treaty between the Philippines and the United States. The president said this was part of his discussion during American Vice President Kamala Harris's official visit to the country last month. Eren Santos for the story.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has ordered a review of the Mutual Defense Treaty between the Philippines and the United States. The president told reporters that there are requests and proposals from the United States that need to be studied. Marcos said the administration is weighing what is the most useful to defend the country's territory.
Well, the Mutual Defense Treaty is continuously under negotiation and under evolution. I always call it an evolution because things are changing. There have been many requests and proposals from the Americans, especially under EDCA. So all of that is under study now to see what is really feasible and what will be the most useful for the defense of Philippine territory.
As if this was part of his discussion with U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris, the president answered in the affirmative. But the president said he is expecting something concrete on the matter by early next year.
Yes, we covered that and many more subjects. But essentially, on the security, tinitingnan natin yung kanilang pinopropose, yung mga joint exercises and EDCA, the use of our bases, all of this. We are in the middle of that. Palagay ko, by early next year, we will have something more concrete to tell you.
Last month, the Armed Forces of the Philippines announced the U.S. plans of building additional 5 joint military facilities under EDCA. AFP Chief of Staff Lieutenant General Bartolome Vicente Bacaro said these include 2 possible sites in Cagayan, 1 in Palawan, 1 in Zambales, and 1 in Isabela. Under the EDCA, the Philippine government is working with the United States to build the future facilities in Cesar Basa Air Base in Florida Blanca, Pampanga, Fort Magsaysay Military Reservation in Nueva Ecija, Lumbia Airfield in Cagayan de Oro, Antonio Bautista Air Base in Puerto Princesa, Palawan, and Benito Ebuen Air Base in Cebu. Eden Santos reporting for Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The Marcos administration is considering other ways to explore oil on the West Philippine Sea instead of government-to-government talks. The Duterte administration had previously canceled talks on oil and gas exploration with China, citing constitutional limits. Marcos said the territorial claims of competing countries in the disputed area have become the roadblock in pursuit of oil exploration. China wants the country to abide by Chinese law if a joint exploration and development are to take place in the area. The Chinese also wanted its jurisdiction to be recognized over the area as its internal waters and not part of the international law. The president said the oil exploration is just a small thing for China, but this is important for the Philippines.
So sinasabi ng Pilipinas, basta yung batas, kailangan masundan yung sa Pinas. Ang sinasabi naman ng Chinese, hindi. Amin yan eh. Kaya kailangan masundan is Chinese. So yun talaga yun ang roadblock doon. Mahirap makita kung paano natin aayusin yun. I think there might be other ways para hindi gawing G2G or I don't know. We'll have to find a way. Kasi kailangan na natin eh. We already need, kung may mahanap dyan, kailangan na talaga ng Pilipinas. Yung China, hindi man, maliit na bagay sa kanila yan eh. Sa atin, malaking bagay yan. So, kailangan talaga natin ipaglaban at mapakinabangan kung meron mang oil talaga.
A health expert believes that 90% of Filipinos may have already been infected by COVID-19, but were undetected by the government because of its limitations. Dr. John Wong, founder of the health research institution Epimetrics Incorporated, said the data was based on the modeling estimates conducted by the Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation, a global health research center at the University of Washington. Dr. Wong also explained the belief that an individual infected and recovered from the virus has acquired a natural immunity against the virus. He said if the individual acquired a small dose of infection, it might not be enough to develop immunity or it would not last long. Wong said the government's focus now is to vaccinate those unvaccinated. Currently, only 64% of the country's population received their primary series of anti-COVID vaccines. Wong said the determination of the country is already in the endemic stage is if it has reached the acceptable limits of hospitalization and death rates on COVID-19. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has no plans yet to appoint a permanent head for the Department of Health and the Department of National Defense. Currently, the two departments are headed by officers in charge. In a chance interview in Quezon City, President Marcos Jr. was asked for the status of the OICs. Marcos Jr. said he is happy with the performance of the DOH OIC Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergeire and DND OIC Senior Undersecretary Jose Faustino Jr. For now, the president said the administration has not submitted any nomination. What is important, according to the president, is if these officials perform their task.
Yusek Vergeire is doing a fine job. Let's let her do, because we are still not out of the pandemic. So we have to continue to be careful. Sa DA, sa DND, no, I think I'm happy with the situation as it is now. We'll see. We always these things are revisited, especially every year at the end of the first year. I don't think that's a secret to anyone. That at the end of the first year, yung mga ibang kandidato, they will now join the mix of possible nominees. So let's be patient. Basta na ako ang concern ko lang yung kailangan gawin na trabaho nagagawa. So far naman nagagawa.
More than 10,000 jobs were offered in today's first K-12 job fair of the Department of Labor and Employment at the National Capital Region in Pasay City. The jobs offered include customer service representatives, cashiers, housekeeping attendants, dining staff, baristas, kitchen helpers, service crews, baggers, drivers, and room attendants. The job fair was participated in by 70 local employers and 10 overseas companies. Dole NCR admits that K-12 graduates have a hard time looking for jobs since most of the employers are looking for college graduates.
The objective of this one is to help our K-12 graduates dahil sila yung magiging new entrants natin sa labor force. However, itong ang K-12 na ito ay parang this is just to open also the eyes of our employers na kahit sila ay graduate pa lamang ng K-12 ay they have this skill already na pwede na nilang gamitin sa kanilang pagtatrabaho.
The country could still expect 2 cyclones to enter the Philippine area of responsibility this December. The Philippine Atmospheric, Geophysical, and Astronomical Services Administration, or PAGASA, said these cyclones would be named Rosal and Samuel once inside the monitoring area. PAGASA weather specialist Benison Estareja said cyclones that formed in December have a higher chance of making landfall, as he also did not discount the possibility that they will be strong and may reach typhoon and super typhoon categories. The country usually experiences 20 average cyclones every year, which causes damage to life and property of Filipinos. Coming up, UN launches record $51.5 billion emergency funding appeal. France's President Emmanuel Macron slams U.S. industrial subsidies. And search and rescue operations continue for survivors of landslide in Brazil. More news coming your way when Agila International returns.
Gapay sa hanap buhay.
As the conflict between Russia and Ukraine continues, climate emergencies and the pandemic push more people into crisis. The United Nations appeals for $51.5 billion in emergency assistance. The United Nations Annual Global Humanitarian Overview estimates that 1 in 23 people will need help in 2023, compared to 1 in 95 people in the year 2015. Hence, the report also projects that next year, 339 million people in 68 countries will need some form of emergency aid. UN Aid Chief Martin Griffiths says next year is going to be the biggest humanitarian program the world has ever seen.
222 million people, more figures for you, will face acute food insecurity in 53 countries by the end of this year. 5 countries already are experiencing what we call famine-like conditions, in which we can confidently and unhappily say that people are dying as a result, potentially children, as a result of displacement, food insecurity, lack of food, starvation. 45 million people in 37 countries now risk starvation.
France's President Emmanuel Macron criticized U.S. industrial subsidies on his first day of state visit to Washington, says Agence France Presse. According to an AFP reporter, Macron told lawmakers and business leaders that U.S. President Joe Biden's Inflation Reduction Act policies are super aggressive against French competitors. Washington believes the IRA legislation, which has a strong backing for U.S.-based manufacturers, will pour billions of dollars into environmentally friendly industries. Yet other reports say European Union governments are crying foul against Biden's IRA. News sources say some EU leaders are threatening to launch a trade war by subsidizing their own green economy sector. Macron said he does not want to become a market to sell American products, since France has exactly the same products as the U.S. He also stressed that France had its own middle class in need of employment. AFP News said the French president also apologized for his blunt comments. Still, Macron said the U.S.-French ties remain solid. He also urged both nations to fully commit to carbon neutrality.
And this is part of, for me, the key elements of my visit. I don't want to be too long on that, but it is key. But we have to go to carbon neutrality 2050. We have to reduce and respect our commitments for 2030, which means a lot of reforms, a lot of involvement of public and private sectors, and a lot of investment and public money, let's be clear, in order to deliver this big chance.
Chinese Foreign Ministry says the U.S. has no right to criticize China's COVID policy after U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said Wednesday that China's repressive crackdown on protests over COVID lockdown showed weakness by the communist leadership. According to Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman Zhao Lijian, U.S. has a lot of domestic problems. Lijian mentioned that U.S. adopted a policy of laxness regarding COVID-19, and it led the world in both COVID-19 infections and deaths. The spokesman stressed that the U.S. should focus on responding to the voice of its own people, as well as their nation's problems, instead of criticizing China's efforts to fight against COVID-19. Li Jian claimed the facts have proved that China's epidemic prevention and control is scientific, correct, and effective. Demonstrations in China sparked by tough anti-COVID policies are truly a challenge to Xi Jinping's presidency, according to Wang Dan, a leader of a Tiananmen Square protest. According to Wang Dan, a student leader of the Tiananmen Democracy Movement, the protest is a heavy blow to Xi Jinping's face in the early stage of his third term. Dan said that people are fed up with the endless lockdowns and stagnant economy, pointing out that the disaster of the Urumqi fire sparked people's outrage. With the recently held protests across China and with the political slogans raised, Dan sees the protests as an awakening to Chinese people to fight for regime change. The student leader expects that Xi will decide to crack down on China's COVID policy as soon as he will not afford to face such repeated protests. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg says the alliance does not see China as an adversary. This was after member states' foreign ministers discussed Beijing's military development during a meeting in Bucharest. Stoltenberg says NATO will continue to engage with China when it is in their interests.
We will continue, of course, to trade and engage economically with China. But we have to be aware of our dependencies, reduce our vulnerabilities, and manage the risks.
In related news, at the start of the NATO ministerial meeting in Bucharest, Italian Foreign Minister Antonio Tajani says China is very important to push Russia to an agreement.
In this moment, China is very important for pushing Russia to an agreement. If we want to achieve an agreement on peace, we need a strong action by China, by Mr. Erdogan, also by the United States of America. Also, we need to stop the Russians in also the Western Balkans. We need more Europe in the Western Balkans.
The second day of talks is due to focus on Russia's eastern neighbors, the Western Balkans and China. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov strongly criticized EU Foreign Affairs Chief Josep Borrell and European partners' ambitions to build a new European Union security without Russia or Belarus. Lavrov raised the issue of whether there is European diplomacy within the EU bloc. He claimed that since day one, negotiations between Russia and Ukraine are not part of Borrell's plans. Lavrov recalled that Borrell said the conflict between Moscow and Kyiv must end with Ukrainian victory on the battlefield. He also said that France's President Emmanuel Macron announced the establishment of a new political European community. However, Lavrov added that Russia and Belarus were not invited to the bloc. Moreover, Lavrov said the union's goal to build new bloc security is not with Russia but against it. Israeli forces shot dead 2 Palestinians on Thursday, including at least one militant leader, during a West Bank arrest raid that sparked gun battles, said Palestinian officials and Israel's army. Based on a Palestinian Health Ministry statement, the 26-year-old Mohammed Ayman al-Saadi and 27-year-old Naim Jamal Zubaydi were killed by the Israeli occupation bullets at dawn today during its aggression on Jenin camp. Jenin is a fortified place of militant factions in the West Bank, which was occupied by Israel since 1967. According to the army, they entered the town of Wadi Brukin, where 3 wanted individuals suspected to be involved in terrorist activities were captured. The army added that during the operation, armed suspects shot at the security forces, who in return responded with live fire. For his part, Israel's outgoing Prime Minister Yair Lapid praised the raids as a direct continuation of their uncompromising policy on the fight against terrorism. A letter bomb exploded at the Ukraine embassy in Madrid yesterday, injuring a security guard. According to the central government's representative in Madrid, the security guard was injured when he opened the letter in the embassy garden. Officials said that the guard suffered a small injury to his right hand. Police say the man had been lightly injured and took himself to the hospital for treatment. The letter arrived by regular post and was addressed to the Ukrainian ambassador. Police cordoned off the embassy in Madrid. The incident also prompted Kyiv to boost security at all its embassies. Rescue workers are at the scene of a landslide in southern Brazil that has claimed at least 2 lives. A torrent of mud came rushing down a steep hillside onto a highway Monday, sweeping some 20 cars and trucks off the road. But weather and the remote location have complicated the search efforts. Between 30 and 50 people are still believed to be missing. Drones equipped with heat-sensing cameras are being used in hopes of finding more survivors. Crews have recovered 2 bodies. 6 survivors have been located. A report says South African President Cyril Ramaphosa may face an impeachment threat over the Farmgate scandal. The 3-volume report from an independent panel has found that Ramaphosa abused his position and may have broken an anti-corruption law. News sources say Ramaphosa is accused of hiding a theft of $4 million from his farm in 2020. He has denied the accusations, which also include kidnapping and bribing the burglars into silence. He also said that his money was from selling buffaloes. The parliament is set to examine the report and decide whether to launch impeachment proceedings next week. The European Commission recommended that 7.5 billion euros of EU funds be withheld from Hungary over rule of law concerns. As part of its rule of law mechanism and to avoid freezing of funds, Budapest had until November 19 to pass 17 reforms negotiated with the EU's executive. However, the Commission said a number of reforms have been undertaken, but Hungary failed to adequately implement central aspects of the necessary 17 remedial measures. On the other side, the EPP group strongly commended the decision of the European Commission. The group insisted that the Hungarian government must do more to strengthen the rule of law. It also said Hungary should not receive any more EU money until remedial measures are fully in place. Meanwhile, Brussels said that Budapest must implement the 27 measures or super milestones to secure the funds. The 27 measures include the 17 steps already negotiated as part of the rule of law, conditionality regulation, reforms, auditing, and reporting of the released EU funds. When we return, Ecuador declares a health emergency due to bird flu outbreak. Former U.S. President Bill Clinton gets infected with COVID-19. And European Union threatens Elon Musk with Twitter ban. Find out more stories from around the globe when Matanang Agila International returns.
Gabay sa hanap buhay.
Sa Cine Throwback. Ngayong linggo, alas 12 ng tanghali. Dito lang sa Net 25.
Panalo tayo pag together, walang talo pag together. Let's get together sa Net 25.
Vanity can be an expensive habit. One can be kikay and make money out of it. May isang tao na ginawang motibasyon at negosyo ang kanyang pagkahilig sa pagiging kikay. She managed to build skincare clinics and is now starting her empire in the skin and beauty care products. Let's get to know Miss Ann Barreto, CEO of Hey Pretty Skin, on how she became a successful businesswoman despite the hardships she faced growing up.
Ang isa po sa nakikita kong pinaka-effective para talagang bumili sa'yo, mismo ikaw dapat magamit ka ng produkto. So yun po talaga yung ginagawa ko. Pinapakita ko po sa tao ng effect po niya. And ginagamit ko po talaga siya. So nag-video ako madalas, then pinapakita ko sa tao na kung paano po siya gamitin, kung safe siya, kung paano siya i-apply.
Open for business with Cesar Vallejos. Sunday, 9 p.m.
Gabay sa hanap buhay.
The news continues here on Matanang Agila International. Ecuador Minister of Agriculture and Cattle Bernardo Manzano declares an animal health emergency after detecting an outbreak of bird flu on farms in the country. In order to keep the outbreak under control, Ministerial Agreement 134 was issued, declaring a state of animal health emergency in Ecuador for 90 days. According to Manzano, the avian influenza outbreak was detected by the authorities in charge of the protection and improvement of animal health, plant health, and food safety, which is also known as agrocalidad. The group's periodical exercises and early detention allowed them to activate an epidemiological fence to control the disease. Former U.S. President Bill Clinton announced he tested positive for COVID-19 and is experiencing mild symptoms. In a tweet, Bill said he is grateful to be vaccinated and boosted, which made his case mild. As the winter comes near, he encouraged others to also have their vaccine shots. The 76-year-old Bill confirmed that overall he is doing fine and he makes himself busy at home. The 42nd president now belongs to the President's Club, which tested positive for the virus. On the record, President Joe Biden contracted COVID-19 this summer. Then President Donald Trump tested positive in October 2020, and former President Barack Obama also experienced a mild case earlier this year. Data from the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention shows that on average, more than 300 Americans die and 3,400 people are hospitalized each day with COVID-19. This is with the fact that the virus is still present and its impact is not yet gone. With thousands of people dying of injuries and violence every day, the World Health Organization is calling on leaders to come up with more effective prevention strategies. In Washington, D.C., Rosel Feria reports.
Did you know that some 12,000 people around the world die of injuries and violence each day? According to the World Health Organization, 3 of the top 5 causes of death among people aged 5 to 29 years are injury-related. These include traffic injuries, homicide, and suicide. Other injury-related killers include drowning, falls, burns, and poisoning. WHO says of the 4.4 million annual injury-related deaths, roughly 1 in 3 results from road traffic crashes, 1 in 6 from suicide, 1 in 9 from homicide, and 1 in 61 from war and conflict. WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus mentions that people living in poverty are significantly more likely to suffer an injury than the wealthy. He underscores the health sector's major role in addressing these health inequities and in preventing injuries and violence. WHO says effective and low-cost interventions are available. For example, Spain has set the default speed limit for cities at 30 kilometers per hour and is improving road safety. Vietnam provides swimming training to prevent drowning. The WHO report Preventing Injuries and Violence, an overview is being released during the 14th World Conference on Injury Prevention and Safety Promotion in Adelaide, Australia. The conference provides an opportunity for the world's leading injury and violence prevention researchers and practitioners to continue to advocate for evidence-based measures to prevent injuries and violence. Rosel Feria, Washington, D.C., Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
EU's Internal Market Commissioner Thierry Breton demands tougher censorship over Twitter and warns that the platform may be banned if it does not comply with the bloc's laws. Breton's threats came after Elon Musk pledged to run a fairer social media platform. Musk also tweeted that new and transparent Twitter will not interfere in elections. Breton says he welcomes Musk's intent to get Twitter 2.0 ready for the EU's Digital Services Act, or DSA. The said law is scheduled to come into force in 2024. However, Breton has a list of demands that Musk should comply with. This includes not having arbitrary approach to reinstating banned users, aggressively pursuing disinformation, and agreeing to an extensive independent audit by next year. Failure to do so would make Twitter violate the Digital Services Act and face massive fines or bans. Meanwhile, some verified reports claim Breton and Musk have already discussed the issue. According to Musk, the DSA is very sensible and should be applied worldwide. The Earthshot Prize is an elite and exclusive award given to 5 winners each for their contributions to environmentalism. The winners will each receive a £1 million grant, equivalent to $1.2 million. And for this year, a British startup aims to seal royal approval when Prince William unveils his latest Earthshot prizes. From the UK, here's Arian Celestino.
A British startup founded by 2 ex-students from France and Spain, crafting biodegradable packaging from marine plants, is aiming to seal royal approval this week when Prince William unveils his latest Earthshot prizes. Notpla is competing with 14 other firms for 5 prestigious awards to be dished out by the Prince and a star-studded cast at a ceremony in U.S. city Boston on Friday. The 5 winners will each receive £1 million. The co-creator of Notpla, which rather than using environmentally damaging plastics, makes various naturally degrading and even edible packaging from seaweed and other marine plants, says they have already felt the competition's benefits. Together with fellow former Royal College of Art student and co-founder Rodrigo Garcia Gonzalez, 38, the duo began their eco-business adventure in a small London kitchen. They were intent on finding natural alternatives to petrochemicals-based packaging, sampling a variety of materials from tapioca seeds to other starches. An edible bubble membrane made from seaweed, holding water, sports drinks, or other flavored liquids, it is marketed as a replacement for single-use plastic cups, bottles, and sachets, making it ideal at sport events and festivals. It has been widely used at marathons across the UK, including the 2019 London Run. Viral online interest has helped attract the attention of investors, with Notpla expanding rapidly to boast more than 60 employees and finding itself on the verge of manufacturing its products on an industrial scale. Reporting from the United Kingdom, this is Arian Celestino for Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Prince William and his wife Kate head to the United States this week for their first visit in 8 years. This is also the popular couple's inaugural trip as Prince and Princess of Wales. The 3-day visit to the northeastern city of Boston culminates on Friday evening with a star-studded ceremony for William's Earthshot Prize initiative to tackle climate change. The award ceremony, described by royal insiders as William's Super Bowl moment, is now in its 2nd year. It rewards 5 innovators with £1 million each, or $1.2 million. The trip is the most high-profile since 40-year-old William became heir to the throne in September, when his father succeeded Queen Elizabeth II to become King Charles III. In Boston, the couple will meet the city's mayor, Michelle Wu. They will tour the John F. Kennedy Presidential Library and Museum with the former president's daughter, Caroline. Other engagements include discussions with local officials about rising sea levels in the city. They will also meet charities working with disadvantaged young people and a laboratory specializing in green technologies. Kate will visit Harvard University's Child Development Center. Democratic lawmakers chose Hakeem Jeffries to succeed Nancy Pelosi as their leader in the House of Representatives. This makes Jeffries the first black person to ever lead a U.S. congressional caucus. The 52-year-old in Democratic leadership since 2019, who ran unopposed in the closed-door vote, says U.S. Democrats will push back against extremism.
We look forward to finding opportunities to partner with the other side of the aisle and work with them whenever possible. But we will also push back against extremism whenever necessary.
The vote also saw new faces elected to the number 2 and 3 positions. With Jeffries 30 years Pelosi's Jr., the New York congressman's election marks a generational shift for the Democrats. In a congratulatory statement after the vote, Pelosi says this new generation of leaders reflects the vibrancy and diversity of a great nation. Lawmakers in the U.S. House of Representatives vote to prevent a potentially catastrophic freight rail strike, stepping in to break an impasse between workers and executives during a critical pre-holiday period. The bill effectively forces holdout unions to accept a September deal on increased wages. This is a deal a majority of unions had already agreed to. The House measure, which passed with decisive bipartisan support, now moves to the Senate. Should the bill ultimately clear Congress and reach President Joe Biden's desk for his signature, it would avert a strike that could have cost the U.S. economy an estimated $2 billion per day. Germany and Norway want to start a NATO-led alliance to protect critical underwater infrastructure. This comes weeks after explosions hit 2 key gas pipelines and the fallout from the war in Ukraine. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz says they take the protection of critical infrastructure very seriously and that the attacks will not remain without consequences. Norwegian Prime Minister Jonas Gahr Støre says the alliance would be an informal initiative to exchange between civilian and also military actors, with NATO providing a coordination point. Gahr says underwater cables and pipelines are arteries of the modern economy. He says it is necessary to create a coordinated joint effort to ensure security for the infrastructure. The Nord Stream 1 and 2 gas pipelines of the Danish island of Bornholm were targeted by 2 huge explosions at the end of September. The pipelines connect Russia to Germany. They had been at the center of geopolitical tensions as Moscow cut gas supplies to Europe in suspected retaliation to Western sanctions over the invasion of Ukraine. Coming right up, French baguette gets UNESCO heritage status. Oil multinational Chevron to possibly operate in Venezuela. And Embrace Bake Shop opens its largest branch in Cavite. Matanang Agila International will return with more news. Please stay tuned.
Alam namin ang iyong pagsisikap. Dama namin ang iyong mga sakripisyo. Kita namin ang pagharap mo sa bawat pagsubok. Kaya sa kabila ng mga hamon ng buhay, nandito kami para umalalay. Kasi katulad mo, gusto rin namin ang magandang bukas para sa kanya. Hatid namin ang dekalidad na edukasyon at makabagong pasilidad sa abot kayang halaga. Kaya huwag ka na mangamba. Sasamahan ka namin tuparin ang mga pangarap niya. Maaasahan mong sulit dito ang mga pinagsikapan mo. Sa aming mga makabagong pasilidad at sistema ng edukasyon. Ay lalabas natin ang aking talino at mga kakayahan niya. Kahit sa munting halaga, makakasiguro ka na makakasabay siya sa mabilis na pag-ikot ng mundo. Sa New Era, karamay mo kami sa bawat hamon. Kaagapay mo kami sa bawat hakbang. Kasama mo kami sa bawat ngiti at tagumpay.
The French baguette, which President Emmanuel Macron calls 250 grams of magic and perfection and a quintessential part of French life, was given UNESCO Intangible Cultural Heritage status on Wednesday. An artificial intelligence engineer says that on a national scale, the French baguette is a symbol of and represents French tradition. She says to go to the bakery in the morning to get bread to eat for breakfast, at lunchtime, in the evening, and on all occasions, one cannot resist the good warm baguette. French baker Priscilla Hayertz says it is a basic product that people in all socio-cultural categories buy, whether one is rich or poor. She says everyone eats baguette, bringing everyone together. A baguette is commonly made from basic lean dough. With a crisp crust, it has a diameter of about 5 to 6 centimeters and a usual length of about 65 centimeters. Energy giant Chevron could start operating in Venezuela. The United States has authorized the company despite the sanctions imposed on the country government by Nicolas Maduro. Chevron's activity will give a boost to Venezuela's now stagnant oil production. It will, however, have a limited impact on the international market. President Nicolas Maduro calls for the total lifting of U.S. sanctions on Venezuela's oil industry after a slight easing of the embargo against his country. He says Washington's decision to grant energy giant Chevron a license to resume some oil operations was a step in the right direction. However, he adds they are not enough for what Venezuela demands, which is the complete lifting of sanctions against its oil industry. The U.S. eased the curbs on Chevron's operations after Maduro's government signed a broad social accord with the opposition. The two parties resumed formal negotiations for the first time in over a year. The deal paves the way for the United Nations to oversee a trust fund of frozen assets of the Maduro government. These funds will be used for social projects in the South American country. These include programs related to education, health, food security, flood response, and electricity. The U.S. Treasury Department says the accord marks important steps in the right direction to restore democracy in Venezuela, as it announced a 6-month license to Chevron Corporation. The U.S. men's national team grinds hard for its recent place in the World Cup knockout stage, having an advantage 1-0 win over Iran in a nerve-wracking Group B decider at Qatar 2022. For the first time since 2014, USMNT reached round 16 as Christian Pulisic had his first-half goal that separated the two sides. Amidst heavy pressure, USMNT progressed through the group stage to meet people's minimum expectations for their exciting young team. Nevertheless, the group still faces concerns about ramping up into the knockout stage after Pulisic suffered an abdominal injury while scoring a point to win. The USMNT hope that on Saturday, their star Captain America is fit for the round of 16 ties against the Netherlands, following the news that Pulisic had been sent to hospital for a scan. British singer-songwriter Christine McVie, or Fleetwood Mac, peacefully died at the age of 79 at a hospital yesterday, November 30, in her family's company, a statement said. McVie, who was behind many of the famous rock band hit songs Songbird, Say You Love Me, Little Lies, and Don't Stop, was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1998. She joined the group at the start of the 1970s, and Fleetwood Mac became one of the world's best-known rock bands in the 1970s and the 1980s. McVie left Fleetwood Mac in 1998, and after 28 years, she rejoined the group in 2014. No specific cause of death was revealed, except for a short illness. Meanwhile, Fleetwood Mac led the celebrations of McVie's life. The band said in a statement that Christine was truly one of a kind. They said they cherish Christine deeply and are thankful for the amazing memories they have together. Embrace Organization for the Differently Abled Incorporated opened its newest and largest branch of bake shops in Dasmariñas, Cavite today. Eren Santos reports.
Led the grand launch of its largest bake shop.
Sa panukala po ng kapatid na Eduardo V. Manalo, ang tagapamahalang pangkalahatan po ng Iglesia ni Cristo, sa pagtulong po sa mga differently abled persons. Kaya ang Embrace po ay natatag upang magsagawa po at mag-establish po ng mga livelihood projects para po sa mga differently abled persons. At sa ngayon po, meron na po tayong 4 na livelihood centers kung tawagin po namin. Ang una po ang Embrace Cafe, ang Embrace Bake Shop, ang Embrace Farms, at kahapon nga po ang Hearts and Hands Blind Massage.
Embrace Bake Shop is one of the various livelihood projects of Embrace Organization, which aims to give opportunities to differently abled individuals by providing them high-quality training, jobs, and livelihood. Through the projects initiated by Embrace Organization for Differently Abled Incorporated, persons with disabilities were able to feel that they are part of the society.
Ang vision po kasi ng Embrace ay to make a loving and caring world for the differently abled. Kaya ang Embrace team po ay hindi po tumitigil sa pag-iisip po ng mga livelihood projects para po makatulong sa kanila. At ito nga pong mga itinatag po nating mga livelihood projects ay ito po ang mga pwede pong makapag-employ ng mga differently abled. At bukod po sa employment na ibinibigay po sa kanila, mga livelihood, ay nagbibigay po kami ng mga libreng trainings po sa mga gusto pong mamasukan o magtrabaho po sa Embrace. Yes po, libre po ang training po. Immersion na rin po sa kanila kapag po sila ay natanggap at trabaho po dito sa Embrace, tinuturuan na rin po natin sila kung saan pa po sila pwede pa pong pakinabangan at ini-enhance pa po natin ang mga skills po nila para pa po sila ay maging kapakipakinabang po sa iba pa pong larangan. Bukod pa po dito po sa pagtatrabaho nila sa Embrace.
Various types of bread and cake made with love by differently abled personnel are available in the bake shop. Residents welcome the new attraction brought by the newly launched bake shop.
Ay, opo. Tutuwa nga ho kami, tsaka lagi po namin tinatangkili sa Embrace. Napakasarap po ng kanilang mga produkto, mga tinapay at mura pa. Tangkilikin po natin mga kapatid. Maraming salamat po. Masaya kami tayo mag-Embrace sa lugar namin.
Personnel also opened in Tagaytay City on November 30.
Napakarami po naming mga pinaplanong mga proyekto at pinagpapanalangin po namin sa awa at tulong ng Diyos ay maisakatuparan po itong mga projects po na ito. Pati na rin po ang mga projects po sa abroad dahil meron din po mga bilin po sa amin na pwede rin po mag-put up ng mga Embrace livelihood projects sa abroad po upang marami pa pong matulungan ng mga differently abled persons. Mula po sa Embrace, maraming salamat po. Mahal po namin kayo.
Not only in parts of the country but also abroad to help give more opportunities to differently abled individuals. Eden Santos reporting for Mata ng Agila International.
Now, that was really wonderful and amazing. To help you go through this week, here's a quote from Atomic Habits author James Clear. Power's influence over external events, peace's influence over internal events. And truly, the challenge lies with striking a balance between the two. And that's a wrap for tonight's news. Catch the latest updates on our social media channels. I am Nina Richie Alago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.